I don't consider the Ravens a running offense. I consider them somebody that overuses Lamar Jackson and forces him to be that way.
But have they done enough? Like, could you argue that they're wasting a little bit of his prime in terms of having the talent when you say there's no number one?
Yeah. And I'm like, no. You put the franchise on his back. You put him in a position where he's overexposed.
Yep.
The reality of the situation is that Lamar Jackson, as electrifying as he is running the football, he's one of the rare quarterbacks in the league compelled to run because of the weapons or the lack thereof around. The Bateman, Duvernay, they can play. I get all that. Andrews can play.
They're not number
I get
ones.
all of that. Dobbins. They were not number ones. Number one and number two, they've been injured. And so when you take those things into consideration, once again, you have Lamar Jackson coming into the season knowing that him, not just the passer, but him in totality, has to come save the day.
I am back from a hiatus, and I am going to redo a video that it's something I actually recorded a few weeks ago, but I actually wanted to just do it over. I meant to obviously do reviews and give my thoughts on the past couple of weeks. But number one, it's been such a disaster watching the Ravens. But number two, I also got like extremely busy, and I was just exhausted, and I just didn't have the energy to like put out these videos. But the video that I have recorded a few weeks ago that I never had put out was a video asking the simple question, which is, has the mainstream media finally woken up to the nonsense, to the fuckery, to the ridiculous state of the Baltimore Ravens? For the second year in a row, we're going into the end of the season without Lamar Jackson. And, personally, I don't think Lamar should come back the rest of this year. Even in the playoffs, I think Lamar should really just sit the rest of the year out to make sure his long-term health is way more important than him dragging himself back, from an injury that he may not have fully healed from yet. Because what have we known about the Ravens in recent seasons? Whether it's, Ronnie Stanley, Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, countless players, we see that, guess what? The Ravens like to rush these guys back from injury. Mind you, none of these guys are even a fraction of the player Lamar Jackson is when it comes to how important he is to this franchise. And they were willing to rush those guys back. You don't think they're hoping and praying that they can rush Lamar back? I don't think Lamar's going to come back the rest of the season. Maybe he'll come back in the playoffs, maybe. But if I'm Lamar, I wouldn't come back for the playoffs either. I'll just fall back, especially because y'all are putting out these weird stories in the media. I'm sure many of you saw those stories that they put out recently where you got these media puppets who is trying to spread stories saying that Lamar is a slacker and all this other stuff. And they keep acting like this is information that's being leaked, but it's not being leaked. The Ravens, they're trying to subtly put out a smear campaign against Lamar Jackson, and their hands are tied because fans aren't buying it. Fans aren't buying it. The majority of fans for the Ravens, they understand just how valuable Lamar Jackson is. So they know you being out here telling them, oh man, like he's not working hard enough, or he's not visiting our doctors or whatever. That's not swaying the fans' opinion, because the fans know that he's a hard worker. They know that he's very talented. They don't doubt his work ethic, and also they know that it's probably in his best interest to not go to your doctors, because your doctors keep getting these guys injured. Your doctors and trainers keep getting these guys injured. It's not just a 1 year thing. It's not just a 2 year thing. It's a 3-4 year thing where you've had players on this team. You get injured. And yet, you can't, at a certain point, you can't call that bad or good luck anymore. At a certain point, you got to start to say, hey, this is just a team that's poorly ran. Not just poorly ran, but whoever's the trainer, whoever the doctors are on this team, they're not doing a good enough job. So I want to get back to the main point, which is whether it's Stephen A. Smith, whether it's Bart Scott, whether it's Michael Greenberg, especially Michael Greenberg, you're seeing a lot of people finally wake up in the media, and they're finally trashing the Ravens because somehow, some way, I don't understand how, but somehow, some way, the Ravens have had this reputation in the media that was this spotless reputation when you have all these media puppets spreading this idea that this team is just a well-ran organization, that's they always do the right thing, like they're this and they're that. And that's not reality. And this is how powerful branding is. Because the brand of the Ravens has been, oh, they're a great team, they're this, they're that, all this positive stuff. But the brand was not congruent with reality. In reality, this is just another team. We're not special. You have a lot of Ravens fans who buy into this narrative that we're this superior team. No, we're not. If we were a superior team, we would have 6 Super Bowls like the Patriots right now instead of 2. We're just another team. In that same time span from 2000 to 2022, we have 2 Super Bowls. So do the Buccaneers. But you're not seeing people gas up the Buccaneers the same way they're gassing up the Ravens. Why? Because the Ravens, I don't know how they did it. I don't know if Steve Bisciotti bribed people. I don't know how this came to be, but either way, this team they have built, not built, but they have gotten this undeserved reputation for being like a superior organization when that's clearly not who they are. They're just another football team. They're, and if they were truly a superior organization, they would have done what the Eagles are doing right now. For Ravens fans like myself who want to see Lamar Jackson win, who want to see Lamar Jackson reach his full potential, we've been screaming for years that you need to fix this. You need to fix this O-line, and you need to go out and get him a number 1 receiver. And the Ravens have actively gone against that, even though it's the elephant in the room, even though it's clearly the biggest flaw on this team, but they're choosing to do nothing about it. But you still want to embrace this brand of, oh, you're a well-run team. No, you're not. This is a terrible organization. We got to sit back and watch the Eagles give the Ravens a masterclass on how to actually build around your dual threat quarterback. Because that's another false narrative that the media has been pushing the past several years, is this idea that, oh, well, the Ravens did their best. They went all in. They built a team around Lamar. No, you didn't. You built a team around your old philosophy of running the ball. And the fact that Lamar is the best dual threat quarterback ever, it's a convenient excuse to say, oh, well, we're just building the team for him. No, you're not. If you were building a team for Lamar, you would have done what the Eagles have done with Jalen Hurts. Look at what the Eagles have done. Look at what the Eagles have done with Jalen Hurts. They went out there. Now, yes, they have a competent running attack. Shout out to Miles Sanders. They have a competent defense. There's not many flaws on that team. But guess what the Eagles also prioritize? They also prioritize getting Jalen Hurts number 1 receivers. They prioritize getting him top tier weapons. They wisely spent a high draft pick on Devontae Smith. He was already good in his own right. He's better than everybody we got right now. And then on top of that, this offseason they traded to go get A.J. Brown, a proven stud at wide receiver who, guess what? He's worth every penny they have spent on him. Just like Stephon Diggs is worth every penny the Bills spent on him. Just like Tyreek Hill is worth every penny that the Dolphins have spent on him. But the Ravens are the only team that, they're the only team out of all these teams that have franchise quarterbacks or quarterbacks with the potential to be franchise quarterbacks. They're the only team who are actively, through their actions, refusing to do what should be common sense. It should be common sense. Like, oh, wow, this guy with bad receivers and a bad offensive coordinator and an overrated head coach has done the impossible. He's constantly winning. He won MVP. He's one of the greatest players we've seen in the past couple decades. And he doesn't even have a lot of help. What if we actually added fuel to the fire? Like, what if we actually added fuel to the fire and got him some help? What if we actually went out and got him some real weapons and some better coaches? What could we be then? The Ravens don't think like that because the Ravens are a poorly ran team. This is a poverty organization. This is a poverty organization that's wearing a Gucci belt. That's all this is, man. For them, it's all about the brand. It's not about the results. Because when you look at the results, in the past 10 years, we've missed the playoffs 5 seasons, including a 4-year stretch before Lamar got drafted when Joe Flacco was stinking up the joint, where we missed it year after year after year. Even the year Lamar got drafted, he wasn't starting that in the beginning of that season. They still had Joe Flacco, and we had a losing record going into Week 10. And Lamar literally saved everybody in the front office's job. And the way you repay him is by doubling down on your own outdated ideology. That's laughable. These guys are a joke, a complete joke. They should be ashamed of themselves. So it's very interesting to see the media finally turning on the Ravens, because the issue has been clear as day, but they have been trying their hardest for several years to not acknowledge the obvious. You got Lamar out here playing with bums. The Ravens know he's playing with bums, but they want to do the bare minimum. They go above and beyond for defense, but they do the bare minimum for offense. You see this time and time again. Yes, they did draft Hollywood and Rashad Bateman, but those are the only major offensive moves they made in the draft when it comes to receiver in years. Other than that, most of the time for these recent years in the draft, they either don't draft the receiver at all, or they'll draft one in the later rounds who doesn't show much potential. You see it time and time again. But when it comes to defense, they go above and beyond over and over again. You have, and this is the dangerous part about, and this is the evil, nefarious part about what the Ravens are doing right now. Because they're doing the bare minimum, they're trying to use that as a way to deflect and say, oh, well, what do you mean? We're helping Lamar. We're getting him help. Look, we got Bateman. We got Hollywood. Okay, that's only 2 major moves you made at receiver in 5 years. But when it comes to defense, you sign Marcus without hesitation. You sign Marcus Williams to a $70 million deal where he's getting paid $15+ million a year. You sign Marcus Peters where he's getting paid a lot. You sign Brandon Williams where he was at one point before you just got rid of him like a year ago, he was getting paid $16 million a year. You signed Calais Campbell, who even though he was in his older years, again, was also getting paid $15+ million a year. You made a trade for Roquan Smith, who by the end of the season, he's only 25 years old and he's an elite linebacker, so he's gonna demand $20 to $25 million. You signed Kyle Hamilton. You drafted Kyle Hamilton, even though you just signed Marcus Williams. You passed over T. Higgins to go get Patrick Queen, to go draft Patrick Queen. You passed over George Pickens to go draft an injured David Ojabo, who so far has played, 3 snaps? Do you see the point I'm trying to make? I know many of you listen and see the point I'm trying to make, but clearly the Ravens front office is so incompetent, they can't see the point that people like us are trying to make. When it comes to offense, they do the bare minimum. They do just a little bit so they can deflect any blame from themselves, so they can pass the buck and say, oh, well, we tried. But then when it's time for defense, they go above and beyond time after time after time. Time after time after time, they go above and beyond. But guess what? When it's time to win games, this defense doesn't matter. You see that time and time again. When you had a 21-point lead against the Dolphins earlier this year, the defense being stacked didn't matter. They still blew the lead. You had a 10-point lead against the Dolphins, it didn't matter. They still blew the lead. When you had a 10-point lead against the Jaguars in the fourth quarter, it didn't matter. They still blew the lead. So you're wasting all these resources, whether it be free agency, drafting, and trading. You're wasting all these resources. You're wasting all the resources you possibly can on defense and doing the bare minimum on offense, and then you're surprised that you can't get far in the playoffs. And it's laughable because, again, when you lose these games, what does the media do? The media is not saying, hey, this defense blows leads a lot. The defense isn't saying, hey, this defense has gotten a whole lot of investment. They need to actually carry this team. No, they're saying, oh, Lamar needs to do more. While ignoring the fact that he has, out of all the playoff caliber quarterbacks, he has by far the worst weapons in the NFL. It's not even close. It's not even close. You don't have to be a football genius to see that. Because some people, including people in the Ravens media and these gatekeepers, they try to spread this idea that because we're saying what we're saying about how they need to fix the offense, that, oh, we don't know what we're talking about. But you don't need to be a football expert to see that this team sucks. You don't need to be a football expert to see that this offense is pathetic. You don't need that. So, so now at the beginning of this video, I purposely put a clip. There's been several clips of Stephen A. Smith in recent weeks calling out the Ravens, and it's not just him. Like I said, Mike Greenberg, he went on a rant. I appreciate that. Even though I'm not a fan of mainstream media, I can appreciate when they finally start to acknowledge the obvious, because you do Lamar Jackson and you do him a major disservice when you sit here and gaslight people into thinking that, oh, well, Lamar's the problem here. No, he's not. The problem here is they do the bare minimum on offense and they go above and beyond on defense in a day and age with their 20-plus-year-old philosophy is outdated. It's poor leadership. Real leaders are willing to adapt. Real leaders are willing to accept. Their ego's not too big for them to actually be able to step back and accept when their way of operating is no longer sufficient. That's what real leaders do. John Harbaugh, Eric DeCosta, Steve Bisciotti, they are not real leaders. Because it is clear as day, this idea that you're going to run the ball and play hard defense, it's not working. In the past couple weeks without Lamar, they're struggling to get 14 points. They're struggling to reach 14 points. In the past couple weeks without Lamar, how many points did they score? They scored 3 points, they scored 10 points, they scored 14 points. They're struggling to even get 2 touchdowns against bad teams. We're not even playing good teams right now. We're on a 4th place schedule. What do you think is going to happen if Lamar leaves and then next year you got to play a 2nd place schedule and actually play good teams? What do you think is going to happen if they stick to this ideology? J.K. Dobbins is back and better than ever. He's doing his thing. Gus Edwards is back and better than ever. He's doing his thing. They're running all over the place and guess what? It doesn't matter. You're not scoring. You're not putting points up on the board. Because this is not 2000. And I did a video. It's funny. It's ironic. I did a video a month or so ago trying to warn Ravens fans, hey, listen, the 2000s Ravens is never coming back. You need to get over it. And there were people in that comment section arguing with me, trying to go back and forth and act as if I don't know what I'm talking about. They're going to be back. No, they're not, stupid. You need to accept reality. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with liking defense. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with valuing defense and valuing a rushing attack. But in 2022, you have to grow up. You have to adapt. You have to accept the fact that this is no longer a league where you're going to get far just running the ball and playing hard-nosed defense. If it was, the Titans would have like 2-3 Super Bowls right now. Derrick Henry has been like the best running back of the past decade. And they've had good defenses. Well, they've had good enough defenses in those time periods. So if that was truly the case, the Titans would have 2-3 Super Bowls right now. But they don't. The closest they got was that one year back in like 2019 where they got to the AFC Championship game. But that's it. They haven't even sniffed a deep playoff run since then. Because that's no longer relevant, man. You need a lethal passing attack. You need a high-powered offense. And in order to get a high-powered offense, number one, you need an elite quarterback. The Ravens have that. But then number two, which is just as important, you need to surround your elite quarterback with weapons, serious weapons. You need to do that. And the Ravens are insisting on not doing that. And it's making them look pathetic. That's why you have so many Ravens fans like myself where we're just saying, hey, listen, if Lamar leaves, I'm not going to be mad at him. I can't blame him. If I was Lamar, I would have already demanded a trade. And that shows you just how like humble and just how like rational Lamar can be, to where he has not thrown a fit yet publicly. Unlike people like Deshaun Watson and others who they take the money, they sign the deal prematurely, and then once their team continues to suck, they want to cry and beg their way out of a deal. No, Lamar, he's chosen not to sign yet. And he's waiting it all out. And I don't blame him, because if you're not going to get me weapons, the bare minimum you need to do is go out there and get me receivers. If you're not going to get me weapons, the bare minimum you need to actually do is pay me. And if you don't want to pay me, spend that money on weapons and still pay me. Ravens, they don't want to do that. They just want to make up excuses as to why they can't or shouldn't do that. Like, oh, well, if we pay you, how are we going to get the money to get this or that? No, you had 5 years of a rookie contract. It's too late for excuses. You need to just go out there and make something happen. Make it enough. Whatever money you have, make it enough. It is what it is, man. All these overpaid players they got on defense who don't do anything when it actually matters most. You need to cut a couple of these guys and spend that $15+ million that you're paying each of these guys to go get me some help. This ain't complicated. Then you see Ravens fans, they always want to lean on the excuse of, oh, well, who was available? Everybody was available. I'm not going to go down the list again of all the receivers in the past 3 years who were available via trade, free agency, or the draft. I'm not going to do that. It was in abundance. We know that. I'm only going to give one example right now. Amari Cooper, he just went to the Browns last year off of a 5th round trade. Come on, man. Actually, I take that back. I'm going to go down the list of receivers who were available. You had Tyreek Hill. You had Devontae Adams. You had, who else? You had, DK Metcalf. Deebo Samuel demanded a trade. You had Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, A.J. Brown. Come on, get serious. George Pickens, T. Higgins, all these guys were guys that you could have either drafted, traded for, or signed in free agency, and you didn't do it. And that's just a short list. The list, if I really was to sit down and go down that list, it's going to be minimum 15, 20 receivers in the past 2-3 years. But you let the media and Ravens gatekeepers tell you, oh, there was nobody that the Ravens could have gotten. When in reality, they could have gotten whoever they want. They didn't want anybody. And that's why if I'm Lamar, I'm not playing this Steelers game that's coming up in a couple of days. I'm not playing that. There's no point. Why? I'd rather rest. Let that team be mid on Sunday Night Football and let the entire country see, hey, this is what they have without Lamar Jackson. It is what it is.